He's All India rank 91, Manu Garg. And for me, he is the real AI.
One should prepare one-pager notes for mostly all the subjects based upon the syllabus.
How did your mother support in this journey? I mean, how was she involved with you academically?
For example, there were handwritten notes and other things that were not available in the text format. So you used to read it out to me.
Something which you can do in 2 hours, probably it took 4 hours for them to do this, right? But it's all about perseverance and the amount of hard work you're willing to put in this exam. So Manu, for me, is the real AIR1 this year, no matter the rank, because the hardship he and his mother has faced, I don't know if people have the mettle to do that.
I started my full-fledged preparation after I joined the Ultimate Assessment Program at Civilsdaily.
There is a 12-month strategy which I have done on Civilsdaily platform only.
I reached out to the Civilsdaily team.
Civilsdaily. Current affairs में Civilsdaily.
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 With Civilsdaily.
Civilsdaily.
Civilsdaily. Civilsdaily. To Civilsdaily.
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 Civilsdaily. Civilsdaily.
A mentorship program of Civilsdaily, and that did help me a lot.
So good evening, students. We have with us today a very, very special ranker. He's All India rank 91, Manu Garg. And for me, he is the real AIR1. Because you must have seen his story across media platforms and other platforms also. He could not see after his 8th class. And after that, the journey he and his mother pursued with respect to making sure that Manu is able to crack this exam and in other areas of life is commendable. So you all know Manu's story of coming out of a disability and fighting for this exam. But here Manu will be telling you his academic strategy, how he cracked this exam, and he will probably give you a rough timeline of next 12 months, how to go about it, right? So Manu, for me, is the real AIR1 this year, no matter the rank, because the hardship he and his mother has faced, I don't know if people have the mettle to do that. So Manu, congratulations for the rank once again, and thank you for taking out your time and joining us at Civilsdaily.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me.
Okay, Manu. So Manu, when you were starting your UPSC preparation, and I don't mean starting strength-wise, but academically when you were starting, how were your first few months like? And how did you really start the academic part of your UPSC preparation?
Initially, it was very vague. I was not sure that what should I do and how should I begin. So I started with the syllabus part. I apprised myself about the nitty-gritties of the examination. My focus was to know that what is required to appear for this examination. So I went through the syllabus. I went through all the processes, what I required, what things to study. Also witnessed and observed the previous year question papers, which type of questions are being asked, what are the different types of papers, what comes under which GS paper. So this is the first step that one should follow to apprise oneself about the process of the examination.
The syllabus, the book list, and probably the PYQs. Also, students, you could see a rough timetable on your screen. And this is a timetable that usually rankers follow. Manu will add on to this if he has something else to do. Otherwise, this is a rough timetable that you must follow for your 26th attempt, because see, there are big fours. There is polity, there is economy, there is geography, environment, and there is modern history that you should be completing as quickly as possible, roughly in 3 to 3.5 months. So Manu also, while he was starting, he looked for the books, he looked for the PYQs, he looked at the syllabus. Manu, did you also look at the NCERTs while beginning?
Yes, sir. I had a humanities background, so I didn't look at NCERTs from the 6th class. However, I started from 9th class. And subjects like political science were very close to my heart, so I skipped those NCERTs because I had already read it in detail in my bachelor's and master's. But rest of the NCERTs, especially geography NCERT, I would seriously recommend to students to go through it very judiciously, because the 11th and 12th geography, a lot of questions are asked from it. And if one is not from humanities background, then they can begin from 6th. But I feel that the content tends to repeat itself in 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th, again, in a certain depth. So starting from 9th would also do.
Right. Could you just tell the classes of NCERTs that for each subject they must refer apart from geography, for history and for polity also, if you think that, so since you had political science background, but a lot of them are engineers who might not have this background. So would you also suggest them to skip directly to Lakshmikant, or they should read Indian Constitution at work first?
No, I would recommend to them to first go through the NCERTs because that would provide a primer, a foundation for them to understand the concepts and the things that are present in Lakshmikant's third book. So firstly, they should go through the ninth book if they are comfortable in political science. If they feel that they are not able to grasp the basic concepts, then they can go backwards also. But ninth is a good place to start. When it comes to history, one can skip the world history book. I don't know, in my time the syllabus was 9th and 10th, it was world history. So that portion can be skipped and ancient, medieval and modern can be considered. However, one needs not to focus upon the political history part. The timeline and the dates are to be remembered broadly and not the detailed timelines that which king was from which year to which year. That is not required for this examination.
And
one should refer to 11th and 12th NCERTs. That is good. And the 9th, 10th are quite basics and there is no some very special concept. And one can directly skip the microeconomics NCERT. That is not required.
How should they go about reading NCERTs, Manu? Should they read cover by cover, or what would you suggest? Should they anecdoted form of NCERTs are also there, but how would you recommend them to go about NCERTs?
I would suggest to read it comprehensively because it is a very small book and it can be finished in a couple of days. So reading cover to cover would be good.
Right. And see, there are beginners, for them NCERTs is a must, but there are veterans also, Manu, who come after 2, 3, 4 attempts. Should they also again keep referring to NCERTs time and again, or NCERTs is just for once and all?
I think the veterans would have prepared certain notes out of it, or they have underlined or highlighted certain parts of the NCERTs. So just revising them, and they might have an idea that what is being asked. So before reading NCERTs or after reading NCERTs, during the process also, one can go through the PYQs and see that which type of questions are being asked in the examination. That would give a better idea of what portion to cover and what to skip.
Right. So on your screen also, students, you will be able to see polity, modern history, economy, geography, environment. Right, and you must start by NCERTs, as Manu is also referring. Manu, do you favor note making of NCERTs?
A basic highlight in the book itself would do. And if one wants to make notes, then catchy lines or key terms that can be directly used in mains should be done.
And what should be the source? Should PYQ be the source of making those notes?
Mostly it should be PYQs, and I would also recommend in the initial days as one is starting, one should prepare one-pager notes for mostly all the subjects based upon the syllabus. One should pick up a particular topic from the syllabus, for example, inclusive growth. So one can put the heading inclusive growth and note down the positive, negative causes, what is hindering inclusive growth, how can it be improved, and if any scholar has told something about inclusive growth. And in this framework, one can take down notes from the NCERTs and put it in the one-pagers.
No, this is very important. We'll discuss the very respect micro themes and one-pager notes, because rankers these days are totally emphasizing on that, and the dynamics have shifted to one-pager notes now. But coming back to NCERTs and then probably jumping to the standard books. So Manu, for the first 3.5 months, June to October, they must complete, according to us, polity, modern history, economy, geography, and environment. For polity, we are giving them 30 days. For modern history, we are giving them 22. For economy, say roughly 20 to 22. Geography also 20 to 22. And environment also 15, which includes the standard books also. Would you say that? Would you agree with this, or you would want to change this?
This is a good enough time and one can finish the syllabus. And it would be good if it is finished in 3.5 months. So one also has to focus on the optional part that's why it's a good enough time.
Correct. So, okay. So, Manu, how much hours did you spend on a daily basis, and how did you divide your day? So they have this GS segment, which they must cover. They have an optional to be covered, and they also have current affairs to be covered. If I say that exam has 3 important pillars: GS static, optional, and current affairs. Did you go through all these 3 pillars on a daily basis, or you had something else as a strategy?
So current affairs is an integral part of the journey. So current affairs have to be done at any cost in a day. So some time has to be devoted for current affairs. In the initial days, it would take a lot of time to read newspapers. So that has to be devoted, irrespective of the time that it is costing. It would be beneficial later on. So secondly, about GS, I took 2 subjects at a time. For example, if polity I took, it was interest to me. So with polity, I used to take a subject that is not so much interesting for me individually. So I took geography with it. So I could balance both the things together. And optional, I did along with the GS portion. For example, it was not a clear division of the days of a timetable of the day. What I did was to base my preparation on the targets. For example, if I have to do 50 pages of a particular book, then I have to complete it in that particular day, irrespective of the time it takes.
Right. So, Manu, also how much hours should they give to optional according to you? How much did you give one? And how much should they devote to optional? How much hours should they devote to GS? And current affairs also you mentioned. So should they be reading current affairs on a daily basis, weekly basis, or a monthly basis?
I would recommend current affairs to be done on a daily basis, following the national daily or any newspaper that one follows. Completing it would also make one aware, and it also interests because, for example, currently the India-Pakistan situation is going. If one reads it after a month or after a week, then it would not interest him or her to that level which it would interest right now. So following it on a daily basis is a good option. Sir, secondly, regarding the GS portion, if for example, if one is doing polity, then we can devote certain hours to that subject. And for example, I did Lakshmikant, then I put a target that I have to complete 50 pages or 40 pages in a day. So that can be done.
Okay. How much time did you spend on this in a day?
So if one does 8 to 10 hours, then it would be good enough. And initially, it would take time to that level to be concentrating to studies for 8 hours. So you can start with 4 or 5 hours, then gradually increase it. A piecemeal approach should be followed.
And how did your mother support in this journey? I mean, how was she involved with you academically? I know her as a pillar of strength, of course, that we have discussed in great detail with other areas of the exam process. But academically, how you and your mother studied for, say, 10 to 12 hours a day? Tell the students something about that.
So emotionally, the support was there, and it is quite evident. And academically, what she did was, for example, there were handwritten notes and other things that were not available in the text format. So you used to read it out to me. What I did was to refer to MCQs of that particular topic after completing that topic. MCQs are not quite accessible with softwares. So we used to practice MCQs after completing every single topic. And it is a good practice because when we implement our knowledge through MCQs, it is better understood. If we make a mistake, then we are more likely to remember that, irrespective of just reading the book.
Right. So she used to read this to you loud, and then both of you used to solve it correctly. So students, I mean, what's stopping you? Look at the dedication and inspiration. He's right in front of us. His mother used to read it loud to him, and they used to solve it together. And of course, it would have added their time also in a day. So something which you can do in 2 hours, probably it took 4 hours for them to do this, right? But it's all about perseverance and the amount of hard work you're willing to put in this exam. Great stuff, Manu. So after the standard books are done, now tell them something about the note making. So from June to October only, would you recommend them to make notes of all the standard GS papers and optional?
Note making should be done after analyzing the PYQs in depth. Because if one makes note without analyzing the PYQs, then they would definitely what they would do is to copy the entire book in their notes. So that is not before. Only the things that one will not remember surely has to be taken onto the notes. For example, if I'm reading Plato, then I'm sure that I would remember the theories that he has given. What I will not remember is the particular scholars and the statements that are given about Plato. So only those things that one will definitely not remember should be written down. And if there is a parameter to decide this, if one thinks that he or she can remember a particular stuff after 1.5 years or 2 years, then it should not be written. And if you can forget it after 1 month, then it should definitely be written.
Right. Could you give more example of this, like you just gave of Plato? So of course you would not have been able to make one-pager notes from day one, right? You would have, of course, gone through the cycle of making a bulky note and then, of course, probably crisping it to one-pager in your final end of your preparation. So tell the students more about this process, how to start with bulky notes and then probably end up to one-pager notes. and of course with respect to PYQs. Give them a practical demonstration, probably from GS also if you can, if you're able to recall.
The notes that are made in the very starting would be very bulky, as I did also. So that mistake is done by everyone, and one learns after making that mistake. So after the bulky notes are done, and if you're able to cut down the notes in the initial level itself, then it is nothing can be better than it. What one can do is to take down some notes based upon the answer structure of mains. For example, what we have to write is the positives, negatives, causes, way forward, conclusion. So if one is able to extract these things from the main source or the main standard book, then that would do. For prelims, one has to extract the factual information. For example, if you are studying about geography, then the rivers, their course, their tributaries, these has to be remembered. So they can be particularly highlighted in the note based upon the prelims aspect.
Right. So from June to October, would you recommend them mains-oriented notes, or they should also prepare it in the integrated manner, keeping prelims in mind?
Both should be taken place simultaneously. Mains and prelims are both integrated in a way. So watertight compartmentalization, I would not recommend. What can be done is to highlight separately with a separate pencil or a pen the prelims part. So one is able to revise very efficiently during the prelims preparation.
Right. So for the first 3.5 months students, he's emphasizing that you should be completing your standard books alongside the NCERTs. You should look at the PYQs, and you should start the process of note making, if not microtheme at this level, but you should have a note in place. Manu, would you also recommend them to prepare essay and ethics in this time frame only, or after October would you recommend them to do that?
Essay is a subject that is comprised mostly of the GS preparation. Only the answer writing style is different. Rest the examples and the type of argumentation and narratives are being built by the GS preparation itself. So essay should be done after completing the GS portion first. The basic subjects like polity, geography, society, and economics, environment. Because essay just requires adding on certain examples from our day-to-day life and relating it in a particular narrative, weaving it into a narrative. Regarding ethics can be done between October and December, the time period when one can refer to a single source. There are a lot of material available, and one can apprise oneself about the basic concepts: what is moral compass, what is ethical behavior, and what are the different aspects of socialization. These topics can be done, and but this should be completed before December, because from January and February, prelims preparation dedicatedly should be started.
Manu, how do you deal with philosophical essays? Because, in last few years, we have seen them dominating the scene, and people from non-philosophy optional background, and in general also people who are not into philosophical reading, they find it very difficult to even understand what the essay demands. Forget about really completing that. So did you also face such problems? Because I'm sure a lot of techies do. How do you respond to that?
One should directly skip the topics that one is not able to understand even a bit. So any such topic should be skipped directly, and focus should be only placed upon the topics that one has certain idea about. Because attempting a random topic can cost greatly in the examination, which one has no knowledge about. And it is not required that one should attempt fancy essays or essays that are exemplary and nobody is attempting, because it would not give you extra marks. Rather, it can cost you marks. For example, this year I attempted the essay on social media. It was the simplest topic that is available to me in the paper, and I chose that topic. I didn't think that many people would attempt it or not, because I had knowledge that I would implement in that essay, so that I picked it up. Regarding the philosophical essays, if there is no choice and one has to pick it, then it can be analyzed on various levels. One can choose the sub themes and divide it based upon different approaches. A few years back, there was an essay, "A ship in harbor is safe," but that is not what the ship is for. So here one can analyze every single word and the phrases. For example, the ship. The ship could be analyzed on level analysis. The ship could mean an individual, a nation, a society, or international community as a whole, or any institution. So by these aspects, if one analyzes and implements the GS knowledge, for example, in the level of nation, if we take the example of India, it could be safe in the harbor of the conservative approach that it followed in the basis of economy before 1991 reforms. But it was not meant for that approach, and how it overcame with the LPG reforms. So such examples of GS can be easily integrated in essays. by different approaches.
Right. So no dedicated philosophical reading is what you would not recommend, but use your GS inputs only in that philosophical essays, correct?
Exactly.
Right. So from June to October, students, I hope the strategy is pretty clear. Now we shift to say October to January, which is say 4 to 4.5 months, right? And here I think, Manu, we can also focus on AMAC, like ancient, medieval, society, world history, such topics, security, that is overlooked. Usually that does not comprise of the big fours. Would you recommend this, or you have some different approach?
So along with the AMAC, I think ethics and essay should also be included in this time frame only. Because after January, there would not be time left to complete the essay and ethics portion post prelims. And rest, it is good.
So, Manu, a lot of rankers emphasize on essay ethics optional because, this comprises of roughly 1,000 marks. So, and of course, if you are good in interview, then you would probably be in the list if you do these 3 papers well. There are rankers who have also followed this approach. And of course, because GS remains of 750 marks only then. So, do you support this idea of essay ethics optional should be given more priority than 1, 2, 3, or you should think that no, everything should be divided accordingly, balanced in a balanced way?
I believe that there are very cross-cutting connections in all the papers. The compartmentalization is not quite true because there are blurring borders between these papers. So if one is well versed in GS 1, 2, 3, then the same examples can be implemented in essay and ethics also. So not prioritizing any particular paper, I would not recommend that strategy, but certainly that essay and ethics and optional carries a lot of weightage. But these are not secluded from the GS papers, and scoring good in GS papers, if anyone even gets 5 or 10 marks, that can make a huge lot of difference.
Right. So October to January would also be a time when they should be attempting the mains mock tests, or probably they can, of course, look at PYQs if they cannot enroll in a mock test, or they should basically start practicing answer writing to a level which they do not find difficulty next year, probably when they're writing mains. So would you recommend them to start with a mock test series at this point of time from October to January, specifically mains?
Yes, sir. That would be the best time to start with the mains test series because one has significantly covered a major chunk of the main syllabus, and post this period, one does not get time to practice enough post prelims. So this would be a good time. Before attempting any mock test, any mains test series, one should have a 1-page notes or certain notes prepared on a topic so that one can revise those and appear for the test. That benefits a lot. And PYQs along with the mains test series should be done simultaneously because PYQs are cyclical in nature and they repeat themselves after a particular year. And if one combines the main test series with PYQs of that particular topic, then it would be the best synchronization.
Manu, a lot of students also face at this point of time is a time management issue because, writing answer in 7 minutes or 7.5 minutes, it's very difficult, especially for beginners who are coming out of college, who are used to writing big paragraphs. They are immediately asked to cut it short to 150 to 50 words. And it's difficult for them to articulate and complete this in 7 to 7.5 minutes. So did you also face these issues initially? And if you did, how did you overcome that?
When I was building my content in the starting of my preparation, I didn't focus upon writing answers in a particular time frame because I was trying to implement the knowledge that I had in the paper. So in the starting period, time is not relevant and time is not necessary to be sticked upon to. Rather, what is necessary that if one is able to attempt the question, understand the demand, break the question into several parts and address each part of the question. If one is able to draw a diagram or a map, or if one is able to supply certain examples to substantiate the question, that is more important than time in the very starting period. So one should not worry about crossing the time limit. For example, in the starting period, I wrote answers in 15 to 20 minutes that were to be written in 7.5 minutes. The time management part regarding the answer writing can be done post prelims also when one is attempting the full length test series. At that particular time, a lot of initially one would be only able to do 15 to 16 questions, but in the 80 days between prelims and mains, due to the pressure, automatically one is able to complete the paper.
Right.
So that
So,
would be like after prelims, the
correct.
time management.
So you would recommend them sectional tests in October to January, right? And not full length test series. And they should not worry a lot about completing the paper on time, but rather understanding their demand and probably if they're able to add value to their answers. And you have also talked about SIMAP and such things, which comes under value addition in mains answer writing. So how important it is to add data, committee facts, maps, etc. And how did you do that, and how should they do that?
Regarding the answer structure that I followed, firstly there was a introduction.
Hmm.
Then, if any diagram or any substantiation map or value addition could be drawn, then I drew it. Then I took the heading from the question itself. I would recommend this because I saw it in one of the toppers' copies that they had taken the heading directly from the question. If there is a question on India-Maldives relationship, then the question was, in this year only, the question was describe India-Maldives relationship in terms of geopolitics and geoeconomics. So directly took this heading from the question, India-Maldives relationship in terms of geopolitics. Then second heading, India-Maldives relationship in terms of geoeconomics. I wrote 3 or 4 points in that. The point structure should be firstly writing the keyword. For example, firstly, strong economic ties, then dash, then some elaboration of the point, or directly some example or data related to the trade volume between these two countries. So this was the structure that I followed. Then definitely what I included was the way forward that must be included in most of the answers, because being a future bureaucrat, one should be futuristic and solution oriented. So way forward should be included. I mostly represented the way forward by a diagrammatic representation so that it could save space, because if it is asked in the question, then I would give a more space to the way forward. If it is not asked, then a small schematic would do. And then conclusion with a quotation or a forward-looking with a positive conclusion I provided.
And how did your mother play a role here with respect to answer writing? I mean, she used to write it down for you and narrate it to you, or what was the process?
What we used to do was to take a proper copy. Then we took a particular question from the copy without reading the answer. We wrote the answer ourselves. I used to dictate and she used to write down whatever I said. Then we used to read the topper's answer and compare that what lacunas I had in my answer and what additional points or additional examples I could take from the topper's copies, because topper's copies are filtered out content. A topper has made a lot of effort in their preparation, and that enriched content can directly be taken into our answers. And that should not be done directly, but by writing the answer ourselves, so that we know that where we are lacking, and by drawing parallel with the topper's copy.
I mean, students, you find difficulty in answer writing on a daily basis. Imagine the hardship Manu has gone through, and you should be able to take inspiration at this point of time clearly to write answers, because if he can, why can't you? Right? So it's all about perseverance. It's all about giving your best to this examination. Manu, did you follow any structure with respect to ethics? Did you have some frameworks prepared? And also for mains, also, did you have some framework of answer writing or templates ready beforehand, or you don't believe in this approach?
So this is the approach that I think made a difference of 148 marks in my previous mains and this means. I followed the template approach. I had approaches and templates prepared for most of the topics that are asked in previous year questions. If a question is asked regarding the Panchayati Raj system, then I had a ready-made introduction in place. If a question is asked upon the Indian diplomacy or foreign policy, then I had the conclusion already ready for me. And if any question is asked out of the blue, for example, this year a question was asked on the Pallavas and their art and architecture. I was not very much aware. I just had few examples in my mind. So what I did was to divide my body part of the answer into visual arts, performing arts, and under visual arts, drawing, painting, cave paintings. Under performance art, dances, and different representations. Architecture is similarly divided into temples, rock caves. So by this, one can do and attempt questions if one has approaches. It also saves time in the actual means, because writing an answer in 7.5 minutes or 10 minutes for a 15 marker is a big task if one is thinking on that point itself. So one can have these templates and keywords already prepared. It saves time and it also enriches the answer.
Right. For ethics also, Manu, did you have some frameworks prepared specifically for case studies?
Yes, so for case studies, I had 6 different approaches to solve every single case study. If in one case study I had written the stakeholders directly, then in the second case study I would do certain innovation by drawing 2 columns. Firstly, writing the stakeholder and what stake the stakeholder has in that case. In one case study, what I did uniquely was to analyze the case based upon different philosophies of political science that I studied in my optional. For example, what the libertarian would think about the case, what the feminist would think, what the other human rights approach scholars would think. So I drew a schematic of the different philosophical approaches and how would they tackle that particular case. So by this, if the examiner finds different approaches of handling all the 6 case studies, then definitely one would award extra marks for this.
Okay. And from October to January, with respect to optional, what should be the status? Should they complete both the papers with notes and tests included, or they can relax a bit in this?
And I don't think there is a scope for relaxing in UPSC journey as a whole. And what the paper 1 should be completed, because in most of the optionals, especially in my optional political science, paper 1 deals with theory part, and paper 2 is kind of dynamic, and it is based upon current affairs. So paper 1, paper 2, the basic underpinnings of the paper should be done in these 3 months and 4 months. Answer writing should be done in addition, in simultaneous with the topics that one does in these papers, the preparation of these papers. And regarding the portion that is left for paper 2, that can be done post prelims, the current affairs part that can be done, because it is dynamic and it keeps on changing with time.
So with respect to answer writing of optional also, how is it different from GS according to you?
The major difference that I did in my mains was to write the GS answers in point format and by putting in headings, and writing the optionals in mostly paragraphs, because I find the optional answer writing style to be more in sync with the answer writing that one does in the masters or in bachelors. However, multi-dimensional approach should be followed, and there is also a resource constraint of pages in optionals. Optional answer writing, one should provide an introduction, then one should highlight, answer the question that is as the demand of the question by different perspectives and by multidisciplinary and multidimensional approach in paragraphs by providing a narrative. And the substantiation can be done including the example in the paragraph itself. A unique thing that I did in my optional answer writing was including the question demand in my paragraph narrative. If I'm allowed to put an instance, one question was to write Karl Popper's criticism on Plato. So in my paragraph narrative, what I was writing in the body part, I deliberately included this line that with the different criticisms, Karl Popper has also provided criticism to Plato's theory of knowledge. And I put it in a box. This would give me 2 benefits. Firstly, I am aware that I am not diverting from the demand. And secondly, the examiner is also aware that this person is not diverting from the demand of the question.
Right. So there's also a very important theme, Manu, is what students are able to know answer is what is stuck is at revision. So how do they revise so many things, because it's January now and they have lot of things done already. Now the challenge is to revise and keep revising those sources again and again. So did you also face such challenge, and what is it? How did you?
If I'm able to do the revision part efficiently, then he or she would face less problem in the examination, because revision is the key to remember. And if one doesn't remember, then one will not able to reproduce the same knowledge, howsoever or how so much one read. But it should be reproduced in the examination. That can only be done with revision. So individually, plans can be created of having a weekly revision session. For instance, Sunday is a day that can be dedicated entirely for the revision of the entire week's preparation, or it could also be done monthly. It totally depends upon the individual and the potential of memorizing things that one has. A technique that I followed was of active recall in revising stuff. I used to tell my mother to tell the topic in the book, and then I used to remember or vocally speak the points that I distinctly remembered from that particular topic. Instead of just reading the book again and again, it would definitely help, but active recalling the concept by closing the book and then remembering what we are able to recall can even help better.
Right. So students, from October to January, you should have your AMAC, security, IR, remaining portion that does not come in Big Four to be completed. You should have your optional, at least paper one, as Manu says, yeah, conceptual part of those papers needs to be prepared with answer writing. And of course, you should have your templates, frameworks with respect to ethics also, and essay also prepared in this time frame. So after like 4.5 and 3.5, say 8-9 months of preparation, you should have done your GS, optional, note making, mock tests, and you should have a template ready with you. You should know the art of answer writing. So this has to be done. And you should be able to actively recall whatever you have done so far. Right, Manu? Anything that I have missed so far? I don't think I have. Okay. Then probably comes the most important part, the final dates. That is your Feb to May end, probably, when the prelims exam is. So would you recommend him to completely shift to prelims now and forget mains forever for last 60 days?
Yes, sir, because prelims is the gateway to the mains. So if one is not able to clear the prelims, then mains preparation would not be useful in that particular case. So what I did was to dedicatedly focus upon the prelims aspect, because CSAT is a major hurdle that one faces during this period, and CSAT requires a good amount of time. So focus and gears were shifted to prelims.
Prelims, including CSAT. The approach for CSAT, if you think like the paper has evolved a lot in the last few years, people are also comparing it to CAT level now. How do you see CSAT evolution, and what strategy would you tell them to follow for CSAT?
Previously, toppers used to only refer 5 to 6 years of previous year question of CSAT, and one was able to clear the CSAT paper with ease. However, in the last couple of years, CSAT paper is becoming quite a challenging paper. It is not just a qualifying paper, rather it is an eliminating paper, which could eliminate, because the GS paper won't be even checked if one is not able to qualify the CSAT paper. The preparation that one needs to do is to have regular practice of the maths portion, and it is not required to go into big calculations. There is a Gen Z term of red flags. So one needs to keep in mind clearly that what is a red flag question, and because only 45 to 50 questions have attempted in CSAT, we don't have to attempt all the 80 questions. So 30 questions have to be skipped. So it would be better if we skip the red flag questions directly rather than spending time on them, because 2 hours is a very less amount of time for solving the paper. So the amount that we save in those questions, in attempting those questions, can be utilized in solving the 45-50 questions that we have.
Right. Manu, in your experience of giving few prelims, how do you see prelims as a paper? I mean, what is it asking from the students? Because, students think that everything under the sun is a probability in prelims. Do you believe in that? Or you think that it has a defined syllabus? And, prelims is different from mains. Definitely. It is testing a different skill set. And for that matter, even it's different from interview, right? So what is your understanding of prelims examination, and what should students do with respect to clearing prelims?
Prelims examination, I think it requires the MCQ to be developed. If one notices few words in the questions and the question structure, then the questions can be solved to a certain extent with knowledge also, with limited knowledge also. For example, if last year, I remember in 2023 prelims, the question was asked, some mushrooms are luminous, some mushrooms are poisonous. Like this, 3 statements were given. So if we notice the word some, then if only one mushroom is also luminous, then this statement would stand true. So prelims require understanding the question structure, also how the statement is framed and what the question is asking. Last year also there was a question that some amount of mercury can be consumed and it is not harmful. We study that mercury is harmful, but some amount can be 0.0001 milligram also. So that might not be harmful for our body. UPSC considered this statement as true. So we need to notice on words like some, must, most, all. These words prove out to be quite helpful when we have very less idea about the question. The questions that can be answered by knowledge, nothing can be better than that if you are able to answer the questions by knowledge. But in the questions that are vague and we are stuck and we are not able to decipher 2 or 3 statements, then these small things can really help a lot. Regarding the attempting of prelims paper, we should again remember that certain questions, for example, what is the dance of honeybee, or what tools are used by orangutan, such questions can be asked, but we need not be afraid of such questions, and we can skip these questions. We don't have to attempt all the 100 questions, because there is negative marking also. We need to find a sweet spot for ourselves by practicing in the mock tests. We need to find our accuracy, that if I attempt 80 questions, then more than 55 questions I make it correctly. So we can simulate this in the actual mock tests before the prelims.
Final question before I let you go, Manu. If you have to give this exam, and if you have to clear this in first attempt, what are the few mistakes that you would avoid?
The mistakes that I would avoid, firstly, was to in my very first attempt, I focused less upon the answer writing part, and I ignored the previous year questions in a way, which I improved in my this attempt. So I would recommend students to take the previous year questions and what the UPSC has already asked very seriously. In prelims also, the PYQs are repeated after a period of time. So PYQs are non-negotiable in a sense. They don't have to be ignored in any way possible. Secondly, one should be more curious about the examination and the different happenings. One need to develop that interest in the current happenings around. UPSC is testing that curiosity if one has curiosity in him or her. So if we study the same thing by more interest, then we would enjoy the process rather than just taking it as a burden. Thirdly, one should have a fallback mechanism when it comes to mental health, because this examination is very mentally taxing and tiring. So one needs to have that reward and punishment mechanism, or any such mechanism to take care of the mental health also. This exam is filled with anxiety and stress, and one need not to prioritize the exam as a whole above one's health, because this is just an examination, just a part of life. It is not the entire life. There are also other things that one can focus. So also with this, I would recommend a plan B that I had in my journey. I attempted the UGC NET JRF paper. I think it is a great plan B for people who have humanities option or other options also. It is a single day paper. If one attempts that paper, then one is eligible to become assistant professor in any of the central universities of India. And if one is able to qualify JRF, which is a slight higher cutoff than the NET cutoff in the same examination, then one gets a stipend of 47,000 rupees for just pursuing PhD and for doing nothing except pursuing the PhD. So it can be a great plan B, and one can find these type of fallback mechanisms. And one more thing, that one should not ignore the friends and family, because they are a great support system in the journey. One should regularly communicate the anxiety, the stress that one has in their mind to the people around.
Wonderfully said, Manu. And what a brilliant strategy session this was. You have given them an absolute clarity about the exam, and seeing your struggle and your dedication towards this exam, I'm sure a lot of us have taken a lot of inspiration. So thank you so much, Manu, for taking out your time and joining us. Students, there is a rough timetable here. You can follow this. I am here. Our mentors are here. We'll be answering questions. Thank you so much, Manu, for your time. You can leave the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me and being such a great host. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.